Three, two, one. Welcome to the Lightforge podcast. This is ADWCTA.
This is Merps. Hello. We are doing one of these things again, like last time, not like the one many years ago where we did a lot of algorithm work and we had a website. That's in the past. This is lazy Merps and lazy ADWCTA now.
All right,
With
not
ranges.
that lazy. I
Maybe not
did
that lazy.
use a calculator and an Excel spreadsheet and did some of the math for almost all the cards. So it's not. I mean, it's no fleshed out algorithm, but I'm not just here providing my opinion either. Just because it's easier for me to think quantitatively about personal cards. But yes, this is the United in Stormwind card preview. The evaluation stream podcast YouTube video, and it has sounds such as people donating 100 bits. Thank you. But we will not be giving shout outs inside of this because it will take too long. But we will give shout outs in between our recording segments. So here are the segments. Okay, if you're listening to this or watching this, this is what's going down. You are listening to or watching a segment called Intro. We're going to talk about the rotation and the meta after this. And then after that, we're going to talk about the neutral cards in 3 segments: the top cards, the normal cards, and the deep cuts. And then we're going to talk about classes one by one by one. So that's the schedule for the rest of the however many hours this takes. We hope it does not bring us too deep into the night, but this is almost certainly going past midnight. It's 5:30 right now. We started a little late. So yeah, it'll be fun.
Okay. Talk about the scale.
All right. So one of the first things we should review is the scale that we're using. I know a lot of our listeners are not as familiar with it, but it's the same exact scale, completely untouched, that we used last time, which was in Barrens. Now, let me get the scale up so we have a visual aid, and we'll talk this through if you are a listener as well. So the scale goes from S to F. And it's in tiers, right? A tier, B tier, C tier. We start at C tier, where Chillwind Yeti is at like the very bottom of the C tier. C tier should just be kind of the normal card that you're offered. You're not particularly happy to get it, but it's not going to kill your deck. When you go down from C tier, D plus tier, you get stuff like Ice Ranger. Probably at the high end of the D plus tier, something like a Croc or a Raptor. Then you get even farther down, and you have the normal D tier, which is something like a South Sea Captain, like a 3-mana 3/3 that doesn't really do much. Before you go to F plus, which is stuff that does a little thing but not really, and then F, which is near unplayable cards. Now, there's a lot of cards in F just because of how this stuff works, and some of them are it's a very wide range, right? Like, we can't create finer gradients, or else then we have a numbered tier list again. So there will be a huge variation of what is considered F, but generally when you see an F card, you just kind of don't even consider taking it.
All right.
Okay, so going up from C, at C+, you have like something that also does something else, like Mad Bomber, but not like a particularly premium card. Whereas at 3, you start actually, sorry, not at 3, at B, a B tier, you start actually having premium cards. Like, that's where we put Basilisk. And at B+, we put Rat Golem. So you have your premium cards and your like pretty damn premium cards at your B tier. So yeah, it's a B tier, but it's kind of like a Asian parent B. Like, Bs are good, actually. You're not hurting here. This is where you're very happy to have these cards in your deck, and they're gonna do you good. Most of the battles in the game are gonna be fought between like high C tier and low B tier cards. Now, going up even higher, you have tier A. Tier A is what we describe, what at least I personally describe as should not exist cards. Like, these cards have no business, like, I think they disrupt the entire balance of the game as a neutral card. They just should not exist in the game as neutral cards. They can be class cards, but they're at the very top of the class card scale for what I think is a proper balance of the game. And one of the cards in A tier is like Twin Tyrant. And I think we can all agree that that card should not exist as a neutral card. It is that powerful. It is even more powerful than Rap Golem. Like, these are kind of problematic cards when they're not class cards. And even when they are class cards, they're doing stuff you don't want it to do. And at A plus, we stuck Deathwing in there just as an example. We're really not going to see that many A pluses. And at S tier, we have Runaway Blackwing. S tiers just shouldn't exist in the game. Like, period. Doesn't matter if it's like a class card or not. I think we also have what's our internal example for that? It's that warrior card, right?
Yeah, so if you want an example of a class card, for S, it's Troublemaker. Like Troublemaker.
Yeah, Troublemaker or like expendable performers.
Expendable Performers, Cycle of Hatred, Blessing of Authority.
Like
so it's these.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
it's the kind of stuff where they should win you the game if you're able to play them in a position where you're not severely behind. Like so behind on both board and life that basically nothing saves you. But yeah, it's Blessing of Authority, it's like Cycle / Expendable Performers, it's Troublemaker, it's those kind of cards.
Yeah. And going down, like cards that you would think is very premium, such as Flame Strike, would only be an A plus, and like True Silver, we have it an A.
We have the old picture of Flame Strike.
Oh, but we mean the new picture.
Yeah.
And other really good cards like Holy Nova would be a B plus. Blessing of Kings would be a B. So like Blessing of Kings, really good card, right? But it's kind of like a normal premium card. Like you kind of expect it. You're not like, oh no, he Blessing of Kings. You're like, yup, he Blessing of Kings. And at C plus is Arcane Shot. C is Arcane Intellect. D plus would be something like Cold Blood. D would be something like Sprint.
Do you mean the new Sprint or old?
New Sprint.
Okay.
Old Sprint these days is pretty unplayable. And at F, we don't even care. So that is the kind of scale that we are using, and we used it before as well in Barons. And just to give you an idea of how the Barons cards held up, Venomous Scorpid was an A, and it was our highest A. We had two other A's that we said were lower A's, and the next one, like South Sea Scoundrel, I said was more like a B plus. Merps wanted it to be an A, it ended up being an A, but it was like really borderline either way. And then Primordial Protector was kind of a similar, not with a split between us, but just kind of like a very low like A. So those are the A's that we had previewed from Barons, whereas S was more Shad Watch Post, and we all saw what happened there.
Yep. So with the Watch Post as well, it was a combination of power level and the fact that it just blew out games, not just on turn 3, like whenever you played it. It could even be turn 6, you could drop a Watch Post, and then it could just be GG at that point. So we put it out there, and I know a lot of people are just similarly frustrated. It's like, oh, how is Venomous Scorpid not an S? Like, that thing is so toxic. I want it out of the game.
It's not even an A plus. At least we didn't even rate it an A plus. Like, so
an A is very powerful. Remember the range of A, if you remember our old tier list, an A right now is between 200 to around 260. So if it's like a solid A, it's like a 230. And remember, part of the reason why, it's Twin Tyrant, right? So it's like Venomous Scorpid equals Twin Tyrant around. Now their effects are different, and they have different effects on the meta, but we think that their value is around the same. And just for the same reason that it's like, why did everyone hate Tyrant and why does everyone hate Scorpid? It's not the most powerful card in the game. It's just so prevalent that the effect is by far the biggest effect on the game. So, you can complain about Troublemaker, but it's not like the most common card in just one of the classes as well. So yeah, like Troublemaker.
If every class had Troublemaker, you'd hear about it being complained about a lot more.
So we always have to balance this out as well. And neutral cards, a lot of the times the overlap between the effect and the power is pretty close together, but sometimes it's more disparate, and we'll explain that as well. So this is going to be an example of a time where you look at something and don't just think like, oh man, that card is so powerful and so prevalent, and therefore its score should be the absolute highest. Just like Venomous Scorpion. It's an A, it's not an S. Also remember an S, because I understand with other grading scales, other graders kind of use the tippy top a lot. And there are only a handful of cards ever printed in Hearthstone that are an S. Remember that.
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh, every expansion there's like, like a handful of S's. Just like if you look at other, I don't know, like 5-star reviews, it's like there's going to be quite a few 5 stars.
So in Barons, for example, Morshan Watchpost was the only card we gave an S to. And we did not give any card an A+. So if you think Scorpid was the second best card outside of Watchpost in Barons, we agree with you. We just didn't think it warranted a plus. We didn't think it was on that next tier. We're very stingy when it comes to the high end of our grading system because we want it to really mean something. Like when we said Watchpost was an S, we also wanted it out of the game ASAP. Like it was because it was neutral. It was like alarm-raisingly bad.
Yeah. So we want to make sure that stuff like the Watchpost doesn't get tied in to something like a Twin Tyrant and is not too close to something like a Burrowing Scorpion.
Yeah.
A Burrowing Scorpion for us is a B. I think a lot of people would be like, oh, Burrowing Scorpion, that's so like
good. 4.5 out of 5 stars.
Yeah, 4.5 out of 5. Watchpost is a 5. And you look at that delta and you're just like, oh, that's pretty close. But like, no, it's really not close, right? It's like really not close.
Not even, yeah. So basically, after your B pluses, think of us as having a much more extended scale than others, only because everyone else just compresses their scale. So like at this point, it doesn't matter. We're just going to call it a 5 and we're going to describe it, right? We'd actually score it. Okay, so that's what you have to look forward to over the next, I'm going to guess, 8 hours of us talking about all the United and Stormwind cards. And before we get to that, I want to give a shout out to our patrons, our top patrons of the month. 15 Gold Cringe, Ari G, Karova, Yin, Dan F, RV Night Train, Aaron LS, Eric L, 4P, and Brand New. Thank you so much for your support. It means a lot, and it helps us keep the lights on of the Life Forge podcast and make content like this. So let's move on to the next episode, where we're going to break down first what's happening with the rotation that this set is coming into. Until then, This is ADWCTA.
This is Merps. Bye. Cool.